Ambassador David Chen sat in the curved diplomatic chair designed for species with entirely different anatomy than his own, his spine aching from the awkward position. But his face showed nothing except patient attention. 200 years had passed since humanity first stumbled into the galactic community. 200 years of careful smiles and humble nods. 200 years of taking insults with grace and provocations with diplomatic protests filed through proper channels. The Galactic Council chamber stretched before him like an amphitheater of alien judgment. 47 species represented in a rainbow of biological impossibilities. The crystalline Yith, who communicated through light refraction. The massive Orlan, whose bulk required reinforced platforms. The delicate Civ, floating in their containment spheres of methane atmosphere. At the center podium stood Ambassador Thrak of the Krex Empire, his chitinous form gleaming under the chamber lights, mandibles clicking in what Chen had learned to recognize as smug satisfaction. The human delegation once again wastes this council's time with complaints about territorial sovereignty, Thrak announced, his translated voice dripping with contempt. Perhaps if humanity had contributed meaningful military assets to council defense initiatives, their borders would command more respect. Polite laughter rippled through the chamber. Chen's jaw tightened for just a moment, before he forced his expression back to neutral. His hands remained folded on the table before him, steady and calm. His aide, Lieutenant Sarah Park, leaned close and whispered, "Sir, we have documentation proving the Krex violated the Kelmar Accords in 7 different star systems last month alone." "File it through proper channels," Chen murmured back, knowing exactly how far that documentation would travel. Nowhere. The Vryn representative, Elder Morath, raised one of his 6 arms in a gesture, meant to be comforting, but which Chen found deeply condescending. "Young Ambassador Chen, your species must understand that territorial disputes take time to resolve through diplomatic means. The Krex have been council members for over 3,000 years, and have established certain operational precedents. Young, they always called humanity young, as if 200 years meant humans were children stumbling around the galactic playground. What they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that 200 years ago, humanity had made a choice." Chen remembered the history briefings from his academy days, the secret files that explained why humanity played the role of harmless newcomer. The first contact scenarios had been analyzed by the best strategic minds Earth could produce, and the conclusion was unanimous. If humanity had revealed its true nature, its capacity for warfare, its talent for violence, refined over 10,000 years of killing each other with increasing efficiency, at least 34 of the council species would have voted for preemptive containment. Quarantine at best, extermination at worst. So humanity smiled and bowed, and learned everything it could. Every technology shared in cultural exchange was reverse-engineered and improved. Every tactical doctrine observed during joint exercises was cataloged and countered. Every network protocol used in council systems was quietly infiltrated by human programmers who were very good at not being noticed. The Krex didn't know that their secure military communications had been compromised for 70 years. The Vryn didn't know that their vaunted intelligence network had human agents in positions they considered impossible for aliens to reach. None of them knew that humanity had been building ships in deep space facilities far beyond their monitored zones, using resources from asteroids that official charts claimed were worthless. Chen's earpiece chirped softly with an incoming priority message. He kept his expression blank as the encryption cycled through. "Sir, this is Fleet Command." The voice was tight, with controlled rage. "New Edinburgh colony. Krex orbital bombardment. Glassed the entire settlement. 4.2 million civilians confirmed dead. No survivors detected." Chen's heart stopped. 4.2 million people, families and children and farmers and teachers and artists, gone in fire from orbit, because they lived on a world the Krex wanted. His hands remained steady on the table, but something shifted behind his eyes. "Awaiting your orders, sir," the voice continued. "Admiral Zhao says to tell you the Third Fleet can be in position within 6 hours." Chen breathed slowly through his nose, in for 4 counts, out for 4 counts, a meditation technique that kept him from standing up and breaking Thrak's mandibles with his bare hands. "Stand by," he whispered into the hidden microphone. "No action without my authorization." At the podium, Thrak continued his performance. "The Krex Empire has filed a territorial development claim for the following star systems." He brought up a holographic display that made Chen's blood run cold. "Human colonies, including New Edinburgh. These systems fall within traditional Krex expansion zones, and the human presence there is considered temporary, pending council arbitration." Temporary. They were calling 4 million dead people temporary. The chamber murmured with mild interest. This was routine business to them. Colonies changed hands all the time when the powerful species wanted something the weak species had. Chen raised his hand for recognition to speak. Elder Morath glanced at him and looked away. "The chair recognizes Ambassador Vec of the Thalid Consortium." Chen kept his hand raised as Vec droned on about mining rights. His pulse was steady now, calm settling over him like a familiar coat. He knew this feeling from the history books, from the secret studies of human psychology that explained why humanity was good at exactly one thing: organized violence. Lieutenant Park noticed the change. "Sir, are you—" "Quietly. Send a coded message to all human embassies across Council space. Protocol Nightfall. Begin evacuating non-essential personnel immediately." Park's eyes widened, but she nodded and began tapping commands into her tablet. The Vrin were still ignoring Chen's raised hand. Thrak was presenting economic projections for strip mining the human colonies. The Council was discussing relocation compensation for the human populations, as if they hadn't already murdered 4 million of them. Chen stood up, without recognition. The chamber fell silent. This was a breach of protocol so severe that several species gasped in shock. Elder Marat's skin flushed an angry purple. "Ambassador Chen, you have not been recognized. Sit down immediately or be removed from." "This council is no longer fit for purpose," Chen said, his voice carrying clearly through the shocked silence. "The United Nations of Humanity withdraws recognition of Galactic Council authority, effective immediately." Thrak's mandibles clicked in amusement. "The humans throw a tantrum. How entertaining. By what enforcement mechanism does humanity imagine it can?" "You mistook our politeness for weakness," Chen interrupted. "We will be correcting that assumption." Laughter erupted across the chamber. Nervous from some species, genuinely amused from others. Elder Marath attempted to restore order. "Ambassador Chen, this is clearly an emotional reaction to standard territorial negotiations. If you return to your seat and apologize, the Council will consider." "No," Chen said simply. His hand moved to the control panel on his wrist. "You wanted to know what humanity has been doing for 200 years, while we smiled and nodded?" He activated the holographic projectors. "Let me show you." The holographic display erupted into life above the council chamber floor. 47 different star charts appearing simultaneously, each one showing a different region of known space. Elder Morath gestured sharply. "Turn off that display. This is a gross violation of—" "Your security protocols?" Chen asked, his voice colder than the Vrind had ever heard from a human. "Yes, I imagine it is. We've been inside your systems for 140 years. Did you never wonder why your intelligence reports on human activities were always so perfectly complete?" The Elder's skin went from purple to a sickly gray color. Chen continued, manipulating the displays with gestures. "Every sensor array you installed to monitor our shipyards, every spy satellite you positioned over our industrial worlds, Every data packet from our communications, you intercepted. We knew about all of it because we were the ones feeding you that information. Ambassador Thrax stepped forward, mandibles clicking aggressively. Impossible. The Krex military intelligence network is the most sophisticated in Council space. We would have detected any human infiltration. Chen replied, bringing up a new display that showed Krex military code with highlighted sections. 17 times over the past century, each time, your analysts concluded it must be a software glitch because humans were too primitive to breach your systems. The council chamber erupted in overlapping voices, demands for explanation, accusations of espionage, calls for Chen's immediate arrest. Lieutenant Park stood at Chen's shoulder, her hand resting on her sidearm. 3 more human security personnel had quietly moved to positions around the chamber exits. Chen waited for the noise to die down. When it didn't, he simply raised his voice. You can shout all you want, but while you're shouting, Krex ships are currently burning in orbit around their own homeworld. That got their attention. Thrax's entire body went rigid. What did you say? Check your fleet positions, Chen suggested. I'll wait. The Krex ambassador's claws fumbled with his communication device. His eyes went wide as he read the incoming reports. This cannot be. Krex Prime Orbit. For those who prefer visual confirmation, the display showed hundreds of human warships in perfect formation around the Krex homeworld. Vessels that hadn't existed in any intelligence database. Ships that were larger and more heavily armed than anything humanity had officially acknowledged building. 12,417 combat vessels, Chen stated flatly. That's our current operational strength, not counting support ships, carriers, or the stealth fleet. The Yith representative's crystalline form pulsed with rapid color changes, indicating extreme shock. Stealth fleet? The 6,300 ships you can't see yet, Chen answered. They're currently positioned inside the sensor perimeter of every Council military installation in this sector. Elder Morath had recovered enough composure to speak. This is an act of war. The Council will impose immediate sanctions. All human trade will be. Chen laughed, and it was not a pleasant sound. Enforced by what mechanism exactly? Your fleet is designed to police minor disputes and patrol trade routes, not fight an actual war. We've run the simulations 17,000 times with every possible variable. He brought up tactical projections. In a direct military confrontation, the combined Council fleet would last approximately 4 days against human forces. That's assuming perfect coordination between species that have never actually fought together, which our psychological profiles suggest is unlikely. The Phalid representative's tentacles coiled in distress. You've been planning to attack the Council? No, Chen said firmly. We've been planning to defend ourselves if you ever decided that humanity needed to be contained. There's a difference between preparation and intention. Thrak was shaking now, rage or fear or both. The Krex Empire will not tolerate this provocation. Our reserve fleets will. Your reserve fleets received stand-down orders from Krex High Command 30 minutes ago, Chen interrupted. Orders that were signed with the correct encryption keys and authorization codes. It will take your military at least 6 hours to realize those orders came from human cyber warfare units, not from your own commanders. The chamber fell into stunned silence. Chen took a breath. For 200 years, we listened to you tell us we were young and naive. We watched you dismiss our concerns and ignore our formal complaints. We filed documentation through proper channels, knowing it would be deleted without being read. He gestured to the display surrounding them. And while we did all that, we were learning everything about you, your languages, your cultures, your technologies, your military doctrines, your psychological blind spots. Elder Morath's voice trembled. Why? If you possess this capability all along, why maintain the pretense? Chen's expression softened slightly. Because we remembered our own history. When humanity first reached our own stars, we were terrified of what we might find. We'd spent 10,000 years killing each other over land and resources and ideological differences. We knew what we were capable of. He brought up historical data from Earth, images of wars and destruction that made several council members recoil in horror. When we met you, we ran every simulation we could imagine. What would the galactic community do if they knew the truth about humanity? The displays shifted to show probability matrices. 34 species voted in favor of preemptive quarantine in our projections. Another 8 supported preemptive military action. Only 5 species showed probability of peaceful coexistence with an openly militaristic human civilization. Lieutenant Park spoke up for the first time, addressing the council directly. We became what you needed us to be, small, harmless, eager to learn. We played the role of the naive newcomer because the alternative was being destroyed before we had a chance to prove we could be trusted. Thrax's mandibles clicked weakly. This changes nothing. The Krex Empire does not negotiate from a position of weakness. We will fight your blockade. And Chen held up a hand. New Edinburgh. What? Thrak asked. New Edinburgh colony, Chen repeated, his voice dropping to something dangerous. 4.2 million human civilians. Your ships glassed it 6 hours ago. The chamber went very quiet. That's why I'm here, Chen continued. That's why we're having this conversation, instead of the conversation where I inform you that the Krex Empire no longer exists. You murdered 4 million people, and then came to this chamber to laugh about claiming their homes as your territory. Thrak's entire body language changed. Realization dawning. The Council will protect. The Council, Chen said slowly, has spent 2 centuries demonstrating that it will not protect anyone who lacks the military strength to demand protection. That's the real lesson you taught us. Not your diplomatic protocols or your trade agreements. The lesson that power is the only language that matters in this chamber. Elder Morath attempted to regain control. Ambassador Chen, if humanity desires a formal hearing on the New Edinburgh incident, we're past hearings, Chen stated. We're past formal complaints and arbitration committees. The Krex Empire committed an act of genocide, and your response was to discuss relocation compensation. That tells me everything I need to know about the value of council justice. He looked directly at Thrak. You have 24 hours to surrender your orbital bombardment fleet for war crimes prosecution. You will withdraw from all disputed territories. You will pay full reparations to the families of New Edinburgh. You will submit to an independent investigation of your military command structure. Thrak's mandibles spread in what humans had learned was a Krex threat display. Or what? Chen's smile was thin and cold. Or we show you what humanity looks like when we stop being polite. Thrak, laugh, echoed through the council chamber. High-pitched clicks of mandibles meeting in what the translation software rendered as cruel amusement. You threaten the Krex Empire? You show us ships and expect us to cower? We have fought wars since before your species discovered fire. Yes, Chen agreed quietly. And you've become very comfortable fighting species that can't fight back effectively. Let me show you what happens when you pick on someone who actually studied warfare. His fingers danced across the control interface. The holographic displays shifted to show live tactical feeds from 17 different star systems simultaneously. The Orlan delegate leaned forward on his reinforced platform, his massive bulk causing the structure to creak. What are we looking at? He asked. Krex military positions, Lieutenant Park explained, her voice professionally neutral. Major fleet concentrations, defensive installations, supply depots, command and control centers. As the council watched, new contacts began appearing on each display. Human ships decloaking from stealth mode, emerging from what should have been empty space. The numbers were staggering. Around Krex Prime alone, 600 vessels materialized out of nowhere, adding to the hundreds already visible. In the Kelmar system, where the Krex maintained their largest shipyard, 200 human ships were now accounted for. Warships appeared in perfect attack formation. Elder Marath's skins cycled through colors rapidly. This is impossible. Our sensor networks would have detected fleet movements of this scale. Your sensor networks did detect them, Chen replied. 3 months ago, when we began positioning assets, your automated systems flagged the anomalies as cosmic radiation interference. After all, human ships couldn't possibly have stealth capabilities superior to Council technology. The Civ representative's containment sphere flickered with agitated bioluminescence. How long have these vessels been in position? The first wave has been holding station for 94 days, Park answered, completely undetected inside Krex defensive perimeters. The crews have been very patient. Thrak was frantically manipulating his own communication device, barking orders in the Krex language. His mandibles clacked with increasing panic as responses came back. Your military command is currently trying to organize a response, Chen said conversationally. They're discovering that approximately 40% of their communication network has been compromised. Orders are being delayed, rerouted, or simply lost in transit. The displays showed Krex vessels attempting to form defensive positions. Their movements were sluggish and uncoordinated, ships responding to contradictory commands or receiving no commands at all. You wanted to know what humanity has been doing for 200 years? Chen asked the council at large. We've been inside your systems, learning how you think, how you fight, how you organize your militaries. We've identified every weakness and developed 17 different battle plans for every strategic scenario. He brought up a new display showing comparative force analysis. The Krex Empire currently maintains 3,400 combat vessels across all classes. Humanity has deployed 12,417 vessels for this operation. That's a 3.6 to 1 numerical advantage before we discuss quality differences. The Yith representative pulsed with urgent light patterns. Quality differences? Chen nodded to Park, who brought up technical schematics. Human vessels incorporate technology from 43 different species, all of which was shared with us through cultural exchange programs over the past 2 centuries. We've had a lot of time to study, improve, and integrate systems that you assumed we couldn't possibly understand. Our shield harmonics alone represent a fusion of Vryn energy manipulation, Phalid matter reinforcement, and human mathematical optimization, she continued. Our weapon systems use Krex plasma focusing, but with human targeting AI that can predict enemy movements 4.7 seconds faster than standard Council systems. Thrak's voice was strained. This proves nothing. The Krex warrior spirit cannot be measured in technical specifications. When our fleets engage your blockade, the displays all shifted simultaneously to show the space around Krex Prime. A Krex battle group was indeed moving to engage the human fleet. 300 vessels in tight formation, the pride of their military. Chen's expression didn't change. Admiral Zhao, you are cleared to demonstrate proportional response. The council chamber watched in real time as the engagement began. The Krex vessels opened fire first, plasma bolts and missile salvos that would have devastated any standard council fleet. The human ships didn't dodge. Their shields simply absorbed the impacts, with barely visible ripple effects. Return fire, Chen said quietly. Disable only, 0 casualties. What happened next lasted 11 minutes. Human vessels moved with precision that seemed impossible for ships of their size. Targeted weapons fire struck Krex ships with surgical accuracy, hitting propulsion systems, power cores, weapons, arrays, communication modules. Not a single Krex vessel was destroyed. Every ship was simply rendered helpless. Power dead, weapons offline, life support still functional. The entire Krex battle group drifted in space. 300 vessels turned into 300 tombs of metal and composite armor, with their crews still alive inside. Elder Marath's voice was barely a whisper. 11 minutes. 11 minutes and 17 seconds, Park corrected. The Krex battle group that conquered the Phalid home system 60 years ago, the formation that defeated the Yorn Rebellion, the fleet that your intelligence services rated as the most dangerous military force in this sector, neutralized in less time than it takes to file diplomatic paperwork. The council sat in absolute silence. Chen continued, "We didn't kill them. We could have, but we chose not to. Every Krex crew member in those disabled ships will be rescued by their own people within the next few hours. They'll live to tell their commanders exactly what happened when they challenged humanity." He looked directly at Thrak. "Do you understand yet? This isn't about revenge for New Edinburgh, though that debt will be paid. This is about establishing a new reality. Humanity is not your junior partner, not your student, not your charity case." The displays shifted again, showing human fleet positions across known space. "We have assets in position around every major military installation, every strategic resource point, every critical trade hub. We've been preparing for this moment since the day we joined the Council." The Vryn Elder found his voice. "If you possess this capability, why wait? Why allow the New Edinburgh massacre to happen?" Shen's jaw tightened. "Because we were still hoping you'd prove us wrong. We were hoping that eventually the Council would demonstrate that justice meant something, that treaties had value, that civilization was more than just the strong dominating the weak." He gestured to Thrak. "But you laughed when the Krex claimed our colonies. You discussed relocation compensation while the ashes of 4 million humans were still cooling. You proved that our 200 years of patience was a mistake." Lieutenant Park pulled up casualty reports from New Edinburgh, images that made several council members look away. These were farmers, teachers, children. They weren't soldiers. They weren't a military threat. They were murdered because they lived on a planet that the Krex wanted. Chen's voice dropped to something cold and final. "So yes, we're done being polite. We're done filing complaints through proper channels. We're done pretending that council justice will protect the innocent." He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes, or optical sensors, or crystalline facets of every delegate present. "From this moment forward, humanity enforces its own borders. We defend our own people. We prosecute our own justice. And the Krex Empire," he looked back at Thrak, "has 24 hours to comply with our demands. After that, we stop disabling your ships and start destroying them." Thrak's mandibles trembled. "You cannot make demands of a council member species. The collective authority, your collective authority, is currently floating dead in space around your homeworld," Chen interrupted. "You're welcome to appeal to it for help." The chamber erupted in chaos again, but this time there was fear in the voices. Real fear. The kind that comes from watching comfortable assumptions crumble in real time. Elder Marath attempted to restore order. "The Council must discuss this development. We need time to—" "Take all the time you need," Chen said, gathering his materials. "Lieutenant Park and I will be in our embassy. When you're ready to discuss the new terms of humanity's council participation, you know where to find us." He turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Elder Marath, tell your intelligence services to stop trying to locate our shipyards. We have 17 facilities you haven't found yet, and we'd like to keep it that way." The human delegation walked out of the council chamber, leaving 47 species to contemplate a galaxy that had fundamentally changed in less than an hour. Behind them, the displays still showed human fleets in perfect formation, silent and patient and absolutely in control. The human embassy on Council Station Sigma-7 had transformed from a modest diplomatic outpost into something resembling a military command center within 3 hours of Chen's departure from the council chamber. Lieutenant Park, coordinated with fleet commanders across 17 star systems, while Chen reviewed tactical updates and casualty reports, the latter still showing 0 human deaths, despite 3 separate Krex attempts to break the blockade. "Sir, the Krex High Command is requesting a communication channel," Park announced, looking up from her display. "They claim they want to negotiate." "Do they meet our conditions?" Chen asked without looking up from his reading. "No, sir. They're offering a ceasefire and mutual arbitration through council oversight." "Then we have nothing to discuss," Chen replied. "Tell them the 24-hour deadline stands." Park hesitated. "Sir, the council is putting significant pressure on us to accept arbitration. Elder Morath has sent 7 requests for emergency meetings in the past hour." Chen finally looked up, his eyes tired but determined. The council had 200 years to provide justice through arbitration. They chose not to. I'm not interested in giving them another chance to protect their own. A new alert chimed on the tactical display. Park checked it, and her expression hardened. "Sir, Krex reserve forces are mobilizing. Looks like they're not planning to meet the deadline." "Fleet strength?" Chen asked. "Approximately 900 vessels converging on the Kelmar system," Park reported. "They're pulling ships from their border garrisons and colonial defense forces." Chen studied the tactical projection. "They're abandoning their defensive positions to mass forces for a breakout attempt." Admiral Zhao predicted this would be their most likely response. He tapped his communication panel. "This is Ambassador Chen to all fleet commanders. The Krex are refusing diplomatic resolution. Prepare to demonstrate full capability. Remember, we're not here to exterminate them. We're here to make them understand that actions have consequences." Across the station, emergency alerts began flashing as other species' embassies detected the massive Krex fleet movement. Within minutes, Chen's communication panel lit up with incoming requests from 24 different ambassadors. He ignored them all. "Park, open a direct channel to the council chamber," he ordered. "They wanted to watch humanity be civilized? Let's show them what civilized warfare looks like." The holographic projector in the council chamber activated without permission, overriding security protocols that were supposed to prevent exactly this kind of intrusion. Elder Morath was mid-sentence in a speech about diplomatic norms when Chen's image appeared. "Members of the Galactic Council," Chen's voice echoed through the chamber. "The Krex Empire has chosen to reject our terms and is currently massing military forces for an offensive action. In the interest of transparency, you are invited to observe the results of that decision." The central display showed the tactical situation around Kelmar system in real time. 900 Krex vessels in attack formation, advancing on the 200 human ships holding position around the massive orbital shipyards. Thrax stood quickly. "The Krex fleet will crush your token blockade. You cannot hope to." "Shh," Chen said mildly. "Watch and learn." The Krex fleet entered weapons range and opened fire immediately. Thousands of plasma bolts and missiles streaking toward human positions. It was an impressive display of firepower, the kind that had conquered a dozen star systems over the past century. The human fleet's shields held, not flickered, not weakened, simply held, absorbing impacts that should have destroyed conventional vessels. "Human shield technology operates on principles your scientists haven't discovered yet," Chen explained to the watching council. "We've had 2 centuries to study every energy weapon in known space and design defenses specifically tailored to counter them." The Krex fleet pressed forward, concentrating fire on individual human vessels, attempting to overwhelm shields through sheer volume of attacks. Human ships began moving, not retreating, advancing, slipping through the Krex formation with precision that seemed to violate physics. The maneuvers were impossible for vessels of that size. Reaction times too fast, course corrections too precise. Enhanced neural interface piloting, Park's voice added to the broadcast. Human pilots in direct connection with ship systems. Reaction time measured in milliseconds. The human vessels opened fire. What followed wasn't a battle. It was a dissection. Human weapons targeted specific systems on Krek ships with impossible accuracy. Engines disabled in precise sequence to prevent fleet maneuvering. Weapons arrays destroyed to eliminate offensive capability. Communication systems severed to create chaos. The Krek's fleet began to come apart, not from destruction, but from systematic dismantling. Ships lost propulsion and drifted into their own formations. Others lost targeting and fired blindly, hitting their own vessels as often as the enemy. Notice that Krek's casualties remain minimal, Chen pointed out as the council watched in growing horror. We're disabling their military capacity, not murdering their crews. This is what proportional force looks like when applied by a species that actually studied the concept. Within 17 minutes, the Krek's reserve fleet was reduced to helpless debris, 900 vessels drifting in space with life support intact, but every other system offline. The council chamber was absolutely silent. Chen continued, "The Krek's empire has now lost approximately 1,200 combat vessels in attempted engagements with human forces. Total Krek's casualties, 47 dead from accidents during emergency evacuations, 312 injured. Total human casualties, 0. He let that sink in. We could have killed everyone on those ships. We chose not to, because unlike the Kreks, we don't murder people just because we can." Thrak was trembling now, his mandibles clicking in patterns that the translation software couldn't render into coherent speech. However, Chen's voice hardened. Mercy has its limits. The Krek's empire has 6 hours remaining to meet our demands. After that deadline, disabled vessels will be considered legitimate salvage, and their crews will be taken as prisoners of war. Elder Morath found his voice. "Ambassador Chen, this is madness. You cannot simply impose demands on a council member species without—" "Without what?" Chen interrupted. "Without council approval? The council approved nothing when the Kreks glassed New Edinburgh. Without proper procedure? We filed 17 formal complaints through proper channels over the past decade, all ignored." He gestured to the display showing drifting Kreks vessels. "No, Elder Morath, this is what happens when diplomatic procedure fails so completely that military action becomes the only language anyone understands." A new communication alert appeared on Park's screen. She read it quickly and looked up in surprise. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Kreks Prime. It's coded as personal communication from the Kreks Empress herself." Chen raised an eyebrow. "Put it through." The holographic display shifted to show a Kreks figure larger than Thrak. Her carapace marked with ceremonial scarring that indicated royal lineage. Her mandibles moved in patterns that suggested extreme age and wisdom. "Human Ambassador Chen." The translated voice was female and carried authority that Thrax had lacked. "I am Empress Shakri of the Kreks. I speak for my people in requesting terms of surrender." Thrak made a strangled sound of protest. The Empress continued. "Ambassador Thrak acted without imperial authorization in the attack on New Edinburgh. The commanders responsible for that atrocity have been arrested and will be turned over to human jurisdiction for prosecution." Chen's expression didn't change. "And the other conditions?" "The Kreks Empire withdraws all territorial claims on human colonies. We will pay reparations as demanded. We will submit to investigation of our military command structure." The Empress's mandibles drooped in what humans had learned was a gesture of submission. "We acknowledge that we underestimated humanity and paid the price for that error." "You paid a price," Chen corrected quietly. "New Edinburgh paid the full cost. 4.2 million people who will never see another sunrise because your commanders thought humans were too weak to respond." The Empress was silent for a moment. "You were correct. We committed an atrocity against innocence, and no surrender terms can balance that debt. However, we can ensure it never happens again." Chen looked at Park, who pulled up a prepared document. These are our complete terms. Unconditional surrender of all forces involved in the New Edinburgh attack. Full reparations calculated at galactic standard rates. Withdrawal from all disputed territories. Submission to independent war crimes investigation. And reformation of Krek's military doctrine under human oversight. The council chamber erupted in protest at that last item. But Chen ignored them. The Empress studied the terms. The first 4 conditions are acceptable. The last troubles me. You ask us to place our military under alien oversight? I ask you to prove that you've learned something from this, Chen replied. Human military advisors will help rebuild your command structure to focus on defense rather than expansion. Think of it as cultural exchange. A slight clicking sound emerged from the Empress's mandibles, possibly amusement. You use our own practices against us. Very well, Ambassador Chen. The Krek's Empire accepts your terms. We surrender. Thrak collapsed in his seat, as if struck. Chen nodded. Transmission of formal surrender documents within the hour. Human forces will begin relief operations for disabled Krek's vessels immediately. Crews will be repatriated once command authority is transferred. The Empress inclined her head in acknowledgement, and the transmission ended. Chen turned his attention back to the council chamber. There, a civilized resolution to a military conflict. The aggressor is held accountable. Innocent lives are protected going forward, and peace is restored. Elder Morath's colors shifted through patterns of confusion. You call this peace? I call it justice, Chen corrected. Something the council stopped providing a long time ago. 72 hours after the Krek surrender, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session, but the chamber felt different now. The casual arrogance that had characterized council proceedings for millennia had been replaced by something more cautious, more aware. Ambassador Chen sat in his uncomfortable chair again, but this time, when he shifted position, 3 nearby delegates flinched noticeably. Elder Morath called the session to order, his skin colors muted and subdued. The council recognizes that recent events have created a situation requiring immediate attention. Humanity's military actions against the Krek's Empire, while effective, have raised serious questions about the nature of council authority and the balance of power among member species. Chen waited, saying nothing. The Yith representative pulsed with agitated light patterns. The human ambassador owes this council an explanation. The deception, the hidden military buildup, the infiltration of our systems. These are acts of espionage that violate every treaty we've signed. Are they? Chen asked mildly. Which specific treaty clause prohibits building ships in our own territory? Which agreement requires us to share our complete military capacity with other species? Which law prevents us from improving our defensive capabilities? The Yith's light patterns flickered with uncertainty. Chen continued. We signed trade agreements, cultural exchange programs, and mutual defense pacts. We never signed a document requiring us to remain helpless or to trust that the Council would protect us when threatened. The Thalid representative's tentacles coiled thoughtfully. Yet you deliberately misled us about your capabilities. We allowed you to underestimate us, Chen corrected. We never claimed to be weak. You simply assumed we were, and we chose not to correct that assumption. Lieutenant Park stood, addressing the council. Every human diplomatic communication for the past 200 years is a matter of public record. Review them if you wish. You'll find we never once claimed military weakness. We simply didn't volunteer our strength. Elder Morath's skin flashed irritation. Semantics. The fact remains that humanity concealed a massive military buildup while presenting itself as a peaceful, cooperative member of the galactic community. Yes, Chen agreed flatly. Because our analysis showed that 34 species in this chamber would have voted for preemptive action against us if they'd known the truth. He activated his holographic display again, this time showing detailed psychological profiles and probability matrices. The Vrin would have argued for quarantine, claiming humans were too dangerous to allow free movement. The Krex would have pushed for military containment, placing human space under council oversight. The Yith would have supported information restrictions, preventing us from accessing advanced technology. Species after species appeared on the display with predicted responses to human military capability, each one confirming Chen's claim. So yes, we lied by omission, Chen stated. We pretended to be harmless while building the capacity to defend ourselves, because the alternative was being caged or destroyed by species who feared what we might become. The Civ representative's bioluminescence pulsed rapidly. And what have you become? A species that can infiltrate our systems, hide fleets inside our sensor perimeters, and defeat Council military forces with contemptuous ease? We've become what we always were, Chen replied, a species that remembers being prey and refuses to accept that position again. Humanity spent 10,000 years fighting for survival on a death world that tried to kill us with predators, diseases, climate shifts, and resource scarcity. He brought up images from Earth's history, the brutality that had shaped human evolution. We learned to cooperate in groups, to plan for threats we couldn't see yet, to build weapons that could kill creatures stronger and faster than us. We learned that the weak don't survive unless they become strong. Park added, when we reached our stars and found we were late to a galaxy already full of established powers, we had a choice: reveal our nature and likely face preemptive containment, or adapt to the environment we found ourselves in. We chose adaptation, Chen said. We studied you, learned from you, smiled while you patronized us, and built the strength to ensure no one could ever make us victims again. The Orlan delegates' massive bulk shifted. But this creates an impossible situation. How can the Council function if member species conceal their capabilities and manipulate others' perceptions? Chen replied bluntly. The Council already functions that way. Do you think we're the only species hiding assets? The Vrin intelligence network extends far beyond what they officially acknowledge. The Ith have mining operations and systems they claim to have no interest in. The Thalid maintains secret research facilities that would violate a dozen Council regulations. He looked around the chamber. The difference is that we're being honest about our dishonesty now. Yes, we hid our strength. Yes, we infiltrated your systems. Yes, we prepared for war while speaking of peace. And now you know. So we can finally have an honest conversation about what comes next. Elder Marath's colors cycled through complex patterns. And what does humanity want to come next? Shen took a breath. The same thing we've always wanted. To trade freely. To pursue our own interests without interference. To have our concerns addressed seriously instead of dismissed as the complaints of a junior species. The difference, he continued, is that now you know we can enforce those wants if necessary. The chamber fell silent again, the weight of that statement settling over the assembled delegates. The Vrin elder spoke carefully. You've proven your military capability. No one in this chamber doubts that anymore. But military strength alone doesn't build a stable galactic order. Agreed, Chen said, surprising several delegates. Which is why humanity is proposing a new framework for Council operations. He brought up a detailed proposal document. We're not interested in dominating the Council or replacing the current power structure. We're interested in ensuring the Council actually functions as it claims to. Park distributed data packets to all delegates. The proposal has three main components. First, enforcement of existing treaties and agreements, through neutral arbitration backed by military force when necessary. Second, Chen continued, expansion of Council membership to include species currently excluded due to military weakness or resource poverty. If the Council is supposed to represent galactic civilization, it should actually represent all civilizations. Third, reformation of the military defense structure to emphasize collective security, rather than allowing powerful species to prey on weaker ones. The Thalid representative examined the proposal. This would require the Council to actually enforce its own laws. Many current member species benefit from the selective enforcement we practice now. Yes, Chen agreed, which is why this will be controversial. But after watching the Kreks slaughter 4 million humans and seeing the Council's response, we're not interested in maintaining a system that only protects the strong. Elder Morath's skin colors shifted to something thoughtful. You're proposing that humanity become the Council's enforcement mechanism. We're proposing that someone needs to enforce Council law, Chen corrected, and we've demonstrated the capability to do so. If another species wants to volunteer for the role, we're happy to share the burden. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices, arguments for and against, concerns about human dominance, balanced against recognition that the current system had failed. Chen waited for the noise to settle. I understand this is a significant change. Take time to discuss it, consult with your governments, analyze the implications. We're not demanding an immediate answer. But understand this, his voice hardened. With or without Council approval, humanity will enforce its own security. We will protect our colonies. We will prosecute attacks against our civilians. And we will not wait for Council permission to defend ourselves. The only question, he looked around the chamber, is whether we do that as part of a reformed Council working toward actual justice, or as an independent power pursuing our own interests outside Council authority. The Civ representative's containment sphere pulsed with rapid light shifts. You're threatening to leave the Council? I'm stating a fact, Chen replied. The Council has value only if it actually serves the interests of its members. For 200 years, it served humanity poorly. We can either fix that together, or we'll fix it ourselves. Elder Morath raised multiple arms for silence. This proposal requires serious consideration. The Council will adjourn for deliberation. We will reconvene in 72 hours to vote on humanity's framework. The delegates began filing out, their conversations hushed but intense. Chen gathered his materials and nodded to Park. As they walked toward the exit, the Thalid representative approached, tentacles moving in patterns of cautious respect. Ambassador Chen, a private word. Chen stopped. Of course. The Thalid spoke quietly. My people were victims of Krek's expansion 40 years ago. We lost colony worlds, and the Council did nothing except offer sympathy. I wanted you to know that Thalid will support your proposal. Thank you, Chen said sincerely. I hope others see the value in actual justice. Some will, the Thalid replied. Others will fight it because they profit from the current chaos. But after watching you dismantle the Krek's military in less than 3 days, I suspect their opposition will be less vocal than it might have been. The ambassador departed, leaving Chen and Park alone in the corridor. Do you think they'll accept the proposal, sir? Park asked as they walked. Chen was quiet for a moment. Some will support it genuinely. Others will support it because they're afraid of us. Some will oppose it on principle. But in the end, I think enough species have suffered under the current system that we'll get the votes we need. They reached the human embassy, the enhanced security presence visible even from the corridor. Inside, Chen's private office felt smaller than usual, the weight of what they'd done pressing down on him. Park hesitated at the door. Sir, was it worth it? The deception, the hidden build-up, all those years of playing weak? Chen looked at the holographic memorial display on his desk, names scrolling past in columns, the 4.2 million dead from New Edinburgh. Ask them, he said quietly. Ask those 4 million people if our 200 years of patience and careful planning was worth it. Ask them if they'd rather we'd revealed our strength earlier, and maybe faced preemptive containment that would have left us unable to respond when the Kreks attacked. He touched the display, stopping it on a random name. Sarah Chen, age 7, his distant cousin's granddaughter. "We played nice for 2 centuries," he continued, voice rough. "We smiled and bowed and let them think we were harmless. We built our strength in secret and waited for the right moment to show who we really are." "And they're still dead," Park said softly. "Yes," Chen agreed. "They're still dead, and that's why we're never hiding again. That's why we're going to make the council actually stand for something, or we're going to build our own system that does." He looked out the window at the council station, lights glittering against the stars. "Polite mode is offline," he said. "From now on, humanity stands in the light. If that scares people, good. Fear breeds respect, and respect is the foundation of actual peace." Park nodded slowly. "The council will never be the same." "Neither will we," Chen replied. "We've shown the galaxy what we're capable of. Now we have to prove we can build something better than just another empire that rules through fear." Outside, human ships maintained their positions around council space. Silent sentinels, watching over a galaxy that had fundamentally changed. A galaxy where humanity was no longer the polite newcomer learning its place, but a power demanding its due. The age of human patience had ended. The age of human enforcement had begun.